And welcome back, everybody, to week 10 of the EGFC Counter Strike season. We've got plenty of matches here for you tonight, and to kick one off, it's going to be a real heater. And to check out all the action today is myself, of course, Los, and joining me on the mic is a man who looks exactly like his name. It's Viking. How you doing?
Good to be here, Los. Very excited to see all of these matches. Like you said, these should be not only this match, but the rest of today's slate should be quite a few bangers with a lot of very evenly matched teams coming together in what could be some of our closest matches of the season. We're going to kick it off with Marist and Marquette. And after Marist is showing last week on Inferno, Marquette immediately banned that map. And so we're going to see Nuke and Vertigo in this first setup. Then we're going to see Sienna versus South Alabama as they fight for the midfield. DePaul and Colorado, two of our powerhouses, are going to kick it off at 8 o'clock. And we're going to close out with Iona and Niagara, who are still fighting to make it into that midfield from the lower spots on the standing boards. So these players have been a pleasure to watch all season. Last week, it showed that a lot of them have been doing a ton of prep, and we're pretty excited to see how that all plays out today in this first match and beyond.
Yeah, of course, and I definitely am interested in this first matchup because this is very close. It's the third place Marquette versus fifth place Marist, and we're getting right into the first round. And I was going to bring up the fact we're here at Nuke. Marquette already has the bomb down. There are some players getting ready from the top ramp. It's going to be Sprague with that good swing over onto Remy and JM with the follow-up. And that will be a successful retake. They did buy the diffuser first round. Smart players expecting that retake to go successfully, and it did.
And notably, these last two players alive on the Marist side, both Sprague and JM, were two of the impact players that had such a huge part to play in the matches that they played last week against some pretty insane plays and teams, which are always scary. And on the Marquette side, we did not see Remy at all last week. So we're going to see if that time away has given him a little bit more opportunity to come in, as Marigini seems to have sussed out they might be running outside, and we'll see how Marquette does with this quick rush strategy towards Secret and into the B-bomb site.
It worked out quite nicely for them. They're all running through underground. Mandalore, the first one to find a frag here, back onto B. They're going for that play one more time. Have the MP9 just doing a little bit of juggling to get the proper hardware in the right hands. They will get the bomb down successfully. And something I'd like to point out as we were getting into this one is that Marquette, 100% win rate here on Nuke. And let's see if they can prove it why. A nice Kobe out from Penguin to start things off here for the retake for Marist.
Absolutely. And Marquette, certainly no stranger to creating some really, we'll say, out of the box challenging scenarios for the teams that they're playing against. They are one team that has made it very clear on how they prepare for all these things. And that was a great round in general. I think it was a great execution for Marquette, especially when you're buying basically two Tech 9s and nothing else. Marist had a little bit of a scare there, but ultimately able to come away from that and put that second round on the board. But Marquette, with that second bomb, or two bomb plants, puts them in an exceptional position to be here. And this is where I would expect we're going to start seeing some of the reason why they have that 100% win rate.
Going again for another outside play. Or maybe not. Bit of a split here. Multiple players in lobby as well. Might be posturing themselves for a split here, especially looking toward mini. They want to make sure no one's got the angle. A really quick skirmish. Prod almost falling down. Sprague barely holding on to their life. They're going to send out a smoke to block off Squeaky. Things are going to get slowed down one more time. Molly doesn't have too much of an effect there. But we'll continue to send some utility out toward A site. But if you look outside, they've made quite an advance. Almost into Secret. Marigini spots out Mandalore, but there is another player waiting for him. It's going to be just Rich. They can get this shot, and they do. And now there's a bit of a pincer maneuver here. How is Marist going to deal with this one?
Oh, and that just peaking punished so quickly by Marquette. And they're so good at playing that sort of adaptive game of, hey, we're going to play it really close. We're going to play it slow. We're going to see where these picks come from. And then as soon as they get those picks, they're already moving into it. But this time around, they're still kind of maintaining that slow peak, and they're just happy taking off each individual player as they fall into their line of sight. And it's without even a bomb down. We've already lost 3 out of the 5 players. And with Marquette all over the map, it's impossible to get away from them.
Sprague running for their lives, getting shot by multiple players. just to only find themselves dying at the hands of Remvi outside. It's all up to Penguin, who most likely will opt for that save, have to hold on to that M4, and they will do so. I mean, going against that 1v4, not a likely scenario, especially when your money's tight.
Very much so. It's smart. I mean, the first two rounds were pretty expensive for them, and it came down to one and two player or two players on either side, or sorry, two players in either round. Meaning that obviously they had to rebuy every time. But on the other side, Marquette, minimal investment, maximum damage, coming into this with full utility, full equipment, and they're in an excellent position. Whereas Marist now is forced onto that save, and maybe they're going to go for a little bit of eco. They definitely have created some really significant damage in previous rounds, but just given Marquette's extreme level of efficiency on this, it looks like they're smartly going for no investment, see what they can get out of it, try to make it as expensive as possible, and get back into those gun rounds as soon as they can.
More smokes to outside and actually sending a insane through the vent. Like how they're playing this one, and there's actually no defense for them to move through outside. They made their way into Mini. A nice one tap out of Just Rich, who will be traded up by JM. However, they have nowhere to follow up with that. Marquette wins that round so quickly. I did not even expect them to execute with that speed.
That's a huge testament to how comfortable they are on this map in general, and you can see it just from the last couple of seconds in that round. They were coming from all directions. They were not giving anybody an opportunity to steal a weapon and get away from it. And that level of comfort obviously has already given them 2 rounds. And in previous outings on this particular map, they've done very, very well in the early game and just kept that running to the point where it's very difficult to come back. And as we can see, obviously there was a few opportunities for Marist to take away some weapons there, but not enough to really impact the overall economy. And it seems to be kind of a similar thing playing out already here.
Ooh, JM does get one with the CZ. However, that won't be long-lived. 2 more players here for Marist College. Both of them opposite sides of the map at the moment. The Penguin does get a bit of info if they could try and find out anything as they move into lobby, maybe into the hut. They're the last one alive, but no. It's gonna be Remy. Finds that one out pretty quickly, deals with it handily. And now we do have more money on the side of Marist, as that was just a save round, a few deagles on deck. What have they got planned this time?
Looks like we're going to see that first op out from JM, which is a huge factor of how they performed so well last week. And that ultimately is going to be, I would imagine, probably the difference maker, especially as they're trying to pick off some of that early aggression and that early poke that we've seen from Marquette so far. They seem to favor this inside a lot, and they're already just rushing out of it, completely sidestepping the op and just going directly for that upper A plant.
We have Sprague here, getting hit with tons of utility. Just find something through the smoke. Is Prod the first one to fall? But that's just going to equalize it. A swing and a jump out from Mandalore. There to take it right back. No advantage had here for Marist. The Molly block off their advance from heaven. Some more util out. Don't have too much time halfway through the bomb's expiration. Biggs making it even more difficult. The last one stuck up there. JM has to preserve that off. There's no way you could let this one slide, but they're going to hunt it down. You're not going to be able to take that one into the next round here.
Classic Marquette assertion of their dominance, and ultimately just rushing in, giving no quarter whatsoever. And this is something that Marist is going to have to put a stop to very early, because if they are not capable of dealing with that inside early aggression, or ultimately, continuing to lose people to either that mini spam or that outside, this game is just going to get away from them so quickly. And by the time they get over to the T side, there's not going to be a lot of game left to play.
Timeout here for Marquette. Interesting considering how successful they've been in these previous rounds. But when you've got them on deck, you might as well use them. Ensure that your strategies aren't going to be read by Marist. Marist certainly has to figure out what they could do. Actually take advantage of their enemy's timeout, because these last few rounds have not been kind to Marist College. They are once again on that save eco round. Few deagles here. 5-7 there. They need to figure out the new strategy, or at least double up. Work for some trades. Because at this point, are starting to slip into a bit of trouble.
It is, but this timeout obviously works both ways. And while there is, like you said, not a lot of opportunity in the equipment for Marist, This is a way for them to start thinking a little bit more about how that inside setup, especially, is going to be played. Marquette so far hasn't really tested running into the ramp room, except for those very very early round aggressions and very late in the round. So I would expect, I like to see this outside aggression. Unfortunately, they run directly into the crosshairs of Mandalore, who's just going to clean up 3 of them.
Oh, hey, well, Lucky does manage to get one. However, Migs from the top rope up on the Marshmallow will ensure no one gets too much value out of that fight. No rifles recovered there for Marist, and just another quick round here for Marquette. Up on the table once again, but this time looking at Penguin to do the justice.
I think that those are nice rounds to have when they're quick, but you're still doing at least a little bit of damage. I mean, getting anything off of the board is going to be a little bit of that morale boost and try to keep everybody moving in the right direction. Obviously, these are not rounds going in the direction that they want them to, but it does, like you said, get them out of the way, get them set up a little bit quicker. And they seem to have realized that Marquette has almost all gone down secret, although they are still suspicious of that lobby lurking. Smartly aware of that, but there has been no real answer from Marquette already making it all the way to site and just getting slightly hung up in those double doors into the office.
Ooh, Sprague with a good flick onto Remy. They will survive that one. Jumping through the window, Mandalore cleaning up as that attention from ramp will be addressed. Lucky, last one here, does have the M4 in hand. Bomb will certainly go down. Another unlikely scenario, forcing them out to have that save. Hold on to the rifle, and just only one
No, I
player.
think he's unknown. Unless he was the guy that was in front of me, Vent. But I don't think that it was.
Mandalore has been absolutely unstoppable so far, and you can see that in 7 rounds. He's already on 15 kills, which is a huge number and just an absolute crazy way of expressing just how much presence he's had on this map, how much of an impact he's had for his team, and how Marist has continued to just be on this back foot. And there's a lot of things that they really need to focus on stopping here. We've talked about some of that aggression and so on, but I think one of their keys to victory is very obviously take out Mandalore, stop that momentum, try to put some sort of handcuffs on him just to stop him from continuing to be the juggernaut that he's established him so far. Because at this pace, he's on pace to go far beyond just a 30 bomb, and that's a pretty scary thought considering how early we are in this game.
Oh yeah, just bringing up that score line. I didn't even notice how well Mandalore was doing. 15-2 right now. That is a tough act to follow. And
yeah. Understatement of the year, I think, especially when we're looking across the rest of the scoreboards and we're seeing low single digits from everyone, including his own teammates. This really is Mandalore's server right now.
it's another B play, another B execute from Marquette, and they've just been doing it so well. However, we do have players already postured for a retake, or at least a defense of it. It's not going to matter, though. Penguin there with the AUG, I believe. Didn't even get any shots in. However, it has created space. It has created some time. Lucky. Not so lucky, but a little bit of great timing there against Remy. Now it's just back and forth. The bomb has been planted, but there's such slow plays from the ones who aren't on the site. And now it's all left to Migs, who's been whittled down from the rest of the team. It's a 1v1. It's Lucky. They got to get on this bomb. They got to get the defuse. They do have a diffuser. I think they might get it. Yes! Through the smoke, they got it!
Lucky living up to his name there for sure. That was a much better round across the board from Marist. I think they sort of came to that conclusion, either intentionally or not, of we know that Marquette is going to find their way into it. Let's play a retake, and let's ultimately try to position ourselves to play on our terms rather than starting off from, one of those opening frags, kind of putting them on that back foot. And that worked out much better. Mandalore, key that we just talked about, stopped that shit down, and Marquette responding immediately with his aggression, goes in, loses 3 players to JM and Rarigini, but comes back with Prod. Sprague able to take down with the MP9, leaving just Remy alive to keep Marquette in this round. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but we've seen so far that, especially with just Mandalore, they can do pretty much anything with just one player, especially when they don't seem to quite know where he is.
Oh, poor timing against Sprague. Right as they were swapping weapons. They still have big task to take care of. A minute 6 on the clock, plenty of time to work with. We'll get that bomb down on to site. It would seem that they're going to be able to do it. I'm not sure if that's going to be the path they'll take. Smoke out onto Mini to have someone might be
Oh,
able to
that's
peek
smart.
out.
Remy trying really, really hard to bait out anything he can. And with so much time and with no information on the side of Marist, he has basically the run of the place, especially because both Penguin and JM have given him so much space and so much respect for the potential danger. They're not really able to play off of one another, so there's not any chance for a quick refrag. And the fact that nothing's been planted, you hope is going to give them a little bit of suspicion. You see Penguin starting to move towards that ramp space, starting to think that might happen. But Remy with the double juke is going back to A, and he's he's just forcing as little time as possible. And they seem to have gathered where he is now, so they're making that back. And now it's really up to Penguin and JM mechanics to see what's happening. Remy already taking out JM, leaving it just a Penguin, and Remy seems to know exactly where to expect him to come from.
Yeah, perfect placement of the molly, but I don't know if they're expecting him to take Squeaky. He's got the scout out, but it won't be enough. Remy there with the headshot, clutches it out for Marquette. A great time to bounce back from that singular round loss, holding on and snatching back the momentum.
That is one of those backbreaking rounds that we talk about, because not only was Marist up 3-1, their economy was not in a great position overall. You can see that obviously in the buys that they've gone with right now. A couple of MP9s, a scout, and an M4. Not exactly what you want to try to be answering AKs with, but what are you going to do when you're already at round 10 of the half?
Mandalore taking matters into their own hands, pushing up to Rarigini and clearing out outside effectively. There's actually a response. An attack on lobby. Prod, however, lying in wait, doesn't allow that to advance. Now there is Penguin stuck over by Halls, and they're going to have to back off toward a ramp, because control is completely owned out here, outside by Marquette.
One of the things that I'm noticing as we go beyond this, and as you as we go into all these elements, you see Marquette in almost every situation seemingly just a little bit more aware of the spacing, because you've seen in a couple instances where Marist seems to be trying to hide behind a corner or a wall, and you just have those pixels peeking out, where Marquette seems very aware of where those are. And that's giving them a significant advantage as they're starting to cause damage, whether that's ultimately resulting in a frag or not. And that, I think, is one of the big differences that comes just from the knowledge of the map, and it is making a huge difference in terms of the body advantage that's being developed here. And interestingly enough, Marist, opting for that forest last round, I guess, expecting they need to double save anyways, is not helped their case. They're still staying in it, relatively speaking. 3-8 is not, an insurmountable scoreline as they're trying to win out for the next couple, and finish somewhere in the neighborhood of 9-5 is probably realistic. Obviously an 8-7 is ideal, but the way that Marquette is playing, and with the amount that they've got in the bank and what they seem to have left in the tank, that seems less likely to happen.
Hey, anything can happen here at EGFC, Viking. Anything can happen, especially on Nuke. I mean, Marist has proven they've had the ability to have successful retakes. The issue is that there's not many retake situations for them to find themselves a victory. They're always dying before the bomb is actually getting planted, except for those few rare occasions where Marquette sneaks into secret and then gets the plant onto B.
It's been, I think, a very obvious difference in the rounds where, like you said, if they had the opportunity to play for retake, they're doing better on the side of Marist. But if they're never in that position, especially if Marquette's just rushing in, getting 2, sometimes 3 entry frags, it makes it obviously very, very difficult to set up any reasonable response to that aggression in the first place. So by forcing some of these things to slow down, getting a little bit more utility into places like Squeaky or Secret or HUD or any of those places that it's been kind of lacking, mostly because of the economy, that's going to work very much so in Marist's favor, because it forces Marquette to sort of reevaluate the strategy that they were going for. And we've talked with Migs before, and how they really like to get into a position where they can just bully people. So if you start to shut that down, if you start to get, a couple big rounds that, maybe change the mentality that they're coming into it, that's ultimately how they're going to put some of these rounds back on the board in favor of the Red Foxes.
A slow play might be coming to fruition here. Couple in lobby, one in squeaky. It's Remy. The first shot, and actually a sick flank here from Mandalore. Finding themselves in heaven, getting a nice double kill. The last few players on A with the CZ. JM snipes out Just Rich from heaven. A nice play, but I mean, what are they going to be able to build upon that?
It's Mandalore again. I mean, he's been a little quieter in the subsequent rounds since we first pointed out just how far ahead he was in general, but he's still almost double the kills of his nearest teammate, and even more so when you look at it in comparison to Marist. So when you're not answering him, Jam able to get a cheeky kill there over the, I guess you call them vents. I'm not really sure about industrial engineering, but we're gonna go with that. Marquette Marquette losing a few players to Marist in the end, going to make it a little bit more expensive, but ultimately all that matters at the end of the day is the number on those round counts. So Marist still continuing to see that deficit grow, and Marquette getting in a position where they might just run away with map 1.
Yeah, a good few exit frags earned by Marist, but what does it really amount to? They do have their hands on 2 AKs, which nice to have, but if you're not going to be able to utilize those long term, if you can't get those frags on site before it's too late to win the round, it doesn't amount to too much. And that's not going to take an eco hit over onto Marquette. They are big ballin' right now, and they don't have to worry about buying an extra rifle here or there. And I'm also impressed by the fact that they've never utilized or taken back an op that Marist has brought out during earlier rounds. They've never found a need to use it.
True. That's been one thing that, now that you mentioned, has been very conspicuous throughout this whole game, and that I think has worked especially on the side of Marist, obviously, but the fact that Marquette has been so aggressive and so successful, namely going into the upper bomb site, the ops have been kind of ineffectual, right? Because they're not playing with enough presence there to really deal with that aggression. And Marquette, except for I think 2 or 3 rounds at the most, have just opted not to deal with outside really at all, except for a couple of those moments where they were getting a lurk or a peek or something like that. And here we see kind of a similar setup. They're playing at a lobby, they're seeing what happens, and they're already moved down into secret, and Mandalore's just continuing to show that he just doesn't care. He's gonna go in, he's gonna get those frags. It doesn't matter if it's him or his whole team, and that has been so huge. And the Marquette momentum is just continuing to be unstoppable.
Mandalore's just playing deathmatch right now. They're not concerned about strats. They're just running in and winning those gunfights. It's no problem for them at this point. Marquette has just full control. It's not even about maps. It's not about strats. It's that Marist just doesn't seem prepared for any sort of attack that this team is bringing to the table. I mean, we talk about the first frag that happened in this round. It was against Penguin, who was running with his knife out, had no idea there were players headed towards B, and they just lost their life over it, and potentially the entire round over it.
Hey, I mean, I guess that's some sort of consolation prize for JM there to take out Migs, but looking over at the side of the T's, everybody's over 11k still, even after their buys, so that's not going to make too much of a difference, except for the mental fortitude that they are given on the side of Marist. But speed and violence are absolutely the name of Marquette's game right now, and there's been nothing, like you said, to stop them. They're trying a little bit with some of this utility, but I think that there's just sort of a general lack of kind of coordination on the timing front, because you saw that by the time the molly was thrown there, 3 players were already past it. So the good news is they got some good damage on any players. They didn't get any frags out of it, but they did seem to collect on the idea that there are people going towards the lower bomb site, that there's something to be made out of that, and maybe those damage points are going to make a big difference. But this is that kind of situation where playing for retake matters. Penguin able to get 1, but going down to Remy. Jam responds, and now it's just up to Mandalore to see if that happens, and his 2 teammates, Prod and Migs.
Ooh, Migs falls. Mandalore holding strong, though. Backing off. Looking to go into control room. To have 2 players making their way down from ramp. Lucky. First one to walk out, but Mandalore will be taken down. And they will win this round if they do have diffusers. which looks like it is the case. Marist College not going down without a fight. They do have one more round to try and win, to try and salvage this first half, make it a 5-10. Could be worse for sure, Viking.
Absolutely, especially because we've seen when Marquette plays on the CT side, they have a very similar shutdown, almost offensive approach to the CT strategy, which makes it very, very difficult to play against them, especially with where they are of utility and all these elements. Just Rich continuing with that aggression, running in, taking out Lucky. A little bit more trading has been going really well. Rarigini able to take out 2, but ultimately Marquette levels it out, so it's now 2v2, but the bomb is down in mini. Although I don't know if the CTs are aware of that just yet.
Smoke is blocking off JM. They do get a bit of damage in. Not enough. We have Penguin. Last man standing. Out with the op. It's going to go over to B, though.
So far, Marist has had the most success when Marquette plants on B, so maybe that's a positive sign. But with this being the last round, they really want to get that last one. Great shot by Penguin, and surprisingly, even with what seemed like a dink, only losing 5 HP, which means that he's in probably the best position possible to take on Remy.
Remy hanging behind the crates right next to the ramp. They're going to smoke the bomb and go for the defuse, but he's sticking right out. And Remy knows it. Oh, unfortunate smoke placement. And that's going to end the first half with a nice one-tap. Minimal effort there for Remy. But, I mean, it was a close round that led up to that point. Incredibly doable. And it's showing signs of life here for Marist. They do have the potential for a retake. They do have a potential to contest in specific rounds, but the question is, what are they going to do? How are they going to fare here on the offensive? Marquette has been locking it down, even attacking. I can't imagine that their defensive setups are any less oppressive.
That's a great word for it, and we hope to see a little bit more of that, we'll say, late stage momentum out of it. But as you can see, Mandalore already trying to live up to the reputation that he had in that first one, as Marquette sits on that CT side, trying to not give them any life, and that's already happening. It's just an absolute fish in a barrel type of situation. CT's clean it up, only losing 1 player in Mandalore and a little bit of HP off of the rest of their team. That is not a good sign for how and definitely not the way that Marist wanted to start out their T side.
No, they didn't have multiple angles, and it was, I believe, Just Rich up on that angle right above Hut. I had no idea they were there, and it was just a free shooting gallery. Nothing to worry about. Now they're getting a bit aggressive. JM opening things up with the first frag. They will be fired upon as soon as they all leave Squeaky, and it's a bloodbath there, as much as you would expect on the anti-eco. Not even close enough to try and get that plant money. I mean, I'm not sure what the strategy is. They got to spread it out a little bit, not speed run these rounds, Viking.
Yeah, I think if the score was a little bit easier, it makes sense to try a little bit, see if they can, match the same spirit, we'll say, as Marquette brought when they were on the T side, trying to get early picks and aggression. Just Rich catches out Lucky, completely unawares of what was going on, and it's just another bloodbath in the lobby, with JM able to bring back 1 kill on Mandalore, which is one of those key players that we want to make sure gets taken off the board. But that was absolutely dangerous. But as you pointed out before, Marist learned their lesson a little bit. They're a little bit more spread out, so at least that wasn't the entire team going down into one quick battle.
Rarigini, there with another frag that they're going to need. They do have plenty of time. I think if they just force Marquette to sweat a little bit, not be too confident in their defensive setup, and just have that vagueness of where they're going to attack, have that suspicion, that mystery of what their next move is going to be, it won't be so easy for them to corner and just stop all attacks coming through. But it's Just Rich right here waiting for players to enter ladder, and they do get the first one. Maybe a second. JM, though, does get the trade. It's a 1v2, though. This will be difficult to have. 1 player waiting in lobby. They're going to go for the swing right when the bomb is planted. No time to react or even know they're going to get shot. Marquette coming back again, 14-4.
This is getting very, very dangerous for Marist, where if they don't put a stop here, obviously they're playing for the tie as Marquette can get to 15 rounds, but it also is one of those things where the mental energy that you're putting into trying to bring this back might be better spent on thinking about what's going to happen as we move into our next map, which will be Vertigo, which is the Marist choice, which means they, of course, in theory, are more comfortable on that. But we've seen that Marquette doesn't really care what map they play on, and Remy, what a sick shot. Two of them in a row taking down Rarigini and JM and just immediately continuing to show his dominance outside. And this is the exact opposite of what we were talking about when Marist was on the CT side. There was almost no op booms the entire round, or the entire half, excuse me. And in just one single round, Remy gets more op kills than I think we saw in that first half.
Remy lighting up Marist College with that op, and they're just too scared at this point. Sprague needs to throw out that flash before they could even consider peeking. It will be covered on both angles. Migs on the left side. There's no need for the op this time, as they do have backup. A little bit of a jump peek, a jump spray, just to add insult to injury. It's all a fake out as Mandalore there to body block, at least take the attention away. Migs cleans it up. It's match point here for Marquette University. Marist College looking pretty bleak at this point.
It is. It's one of the reasons why you see Marquette getting this pick so infrequently, as we've seen this across the board. I personally love watching Nuke, but it is one of those sort of fringe maps that most people are not going to consider part of their core pool, which is why people try to immediately go for that ban. But this time, just because of how things worked out, Marist was unable to take that off of the board. And, a disadvantage from the start, unfortunately, just, from the comfort level that we've seen. They've talked about it, how it's not a map that they prefer to see. But, of course, we're here now, so you got to deal with it. And Marquette has taken that in stride to make sure that not only are they winning, but they're doing it with as much as possible. And Remy just continuing to show his dominance with that op outside. Migs cleaning up JM, and we're already down 3 players in Marist less than a minute into this round.
There goes a bit of a bite back, finally, from Sprague, going for another potentially. Blind shots through the smoke aren't gonna cut it, though. Marquette quadrupling the score there. Marist College winning 16-4. Nuke, a very crushing victory here for Marquette. Marist is gonna have to pick it up in map 2. I mean, what I want to talk about specifically before we get to that, Viking, is Mandalore had such a strong presence throughout the beginning of the map, but as we saw in later rounds, it was the rest of the team that picked it up. Marquette, as a unit, is very impressive.
Very much so. And we've seen that basically week in, week out from Marquette specifically. And we see that kind of from the top 3 teams in general, top 4, where they'll have a standout player that's going to be the person that is not necessarily the carry, but certainly the person that's just, the right impact at the right time, we'll say. And they're so good and they're playing from so many different places that, like you said, they can come and pick up the slack depending on what the situation is, the strategy, whatever the case may be. So that has been a particularly dangerous part about Marquette. And then as we move into Vertigo, we already know that we'll see some of these players swapped out in favor of the package of players that Marquette is specifically prepared for that map with. And so Marist is going to have a really difficult time. Obviously, they're on their back foot, as I've been using the phrase of, in terms of where they're at mentally. That was quite a decisive victory, as you pointed out. But going into their map pick, we hope that that's going to be something that they're a little bit more comfortable with, a little bit more sure of the strategy, the speed, the aggression that they're bringing to it. And we'll be able to see if Marquette is able to contend with that, or if we see things kind of shift into the other direction.
Well, Marist is going to have some time to have that mental refresh, but the series continues with Vertigo right after this break, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, y'all, to EGFC Counter-Strike. We're here on map 2. We're about to jump into Vertigo between Marquette University and Marist College. Marist just took a bit of a whomping over on Nuke, 16-4, but maybe Viking, they could turn things around on their own map pick.
That is certainly the hope. We're coming into Vertigo, Marist pick, as you pointed out. They're going to be starting on the T side and hoping to really set the pace and the tone for the game overall very early, and to really show that the walloping, as you put it, that just happened on Nuke was entirely baseless. You know, just a flash in the pan, if you will, and come back to it. You know, the last time that these two folks met were in week 3, so these teams have both evolved quite drastically in a lot of elements of their play. And in that case, Marquette and Marist ultimately ended up 1-1. So this could be a repeat of that map or that map differential. And that would be great as we start to think about, how the standings play out as we are in the second half of the season and starting to think about, conference championships, which are only a couple weeks away.
That is true, absolutely. And this is one of the maps that Marist finds himself quite strong on. And you were talking about the 1-1 scoreline that appeared before these two teams. The other win they had was on Inferno. Of course, it got banned, but Mandalore making a case here for mid. They're defending it quite well. Just Rich shooting through as well.
Such a great angle to play from that, to play that mid position from, and Marist just did their best to be aggressive, and Marquette, was absolutely ready for it, just clicking heads and taking out teams with, again, just like we saw in Nuke, very minimal casualties. And that is a very dangerous start, just from the sense that that starts to immediately bring back some of those vibes, some of those elements of what we saw in Nuke, which obviously was the worst possible outcome in terms of the overall rounds. So hopefully Marist is able to brush that off immediately and say, you know what, we know that we're going to take an L in these first 2 rounds. We're going to try to get the bomb down. We're going to come back with AKs, and we're going to show them why this is our map pick and why we're going to take this to 1-1, just like we did the first time around in the first split.
A much slower play this time around in the second round. A lot of players making their way over toward B, but finally Migs and Just Rich taking the advantage and pressing it. Now it's all up to Sprague. After that slaughter, they're all alone, and what a spin! I don't even know what that was, Viking. What was that?
Just Marquette being Marquette, I think, is the simplest way to explain that all the way. And boy, those were quick and decisive rounds, which I guess if you're thinking, let's just get it out of the way and get it over with, that is exactly how you wanted that to play out. So Marist now with AKs and almost full utility are coming back to a position where having a chance. But they keep, in this early peak, Just Rich is continuing to play up in that position with a scout and just chipping away at that health. And as you get into these choke points, as we see Mandalore continuing his hot streak from the previous match, just matching the peaking aggression of Marist, is continuing to put them in this disadvantage. And so they're starting these rounds out, 20 or 30 seconds in, down at least 2 people, and that obviously is not a good place to be. But JM able to answer back, and with Mandalore and Just Rich at least being on lower health, at least gives them a chance. But the double peak with with Remy and Prod gives Prod that second kill onto Raragini, meaning that Marist is now down to 2 players, and the 3 on Marquette are scary, scary players to have to contend with.
They're taking their time. Certainly over by B, the 2 of them. Hanging out, slowly stacking up. We'll have to face off against Just Rich, but with the scout, Penguin didn't stand a chance. Now JM all alone. They were good for 1 kill earlier. Might be able to get more. Flashing jump peek will cause them to run away in fear. They don't know Mandalore is hanging around the corner, but you always gotta be careful because Mandalore is creeping every round.
One thing we've noted about Marquette in previous games of Vertigo and other maps in general is they're really good about that sort of oppressive, to borrow your term, rotation strategies. So as you get later into the round, they don't stay stationary. They start to move around. They start to try to come up into like lurking positions effectively, to make sure that if you decide that you're going to change your mind about where you're approaching or how you're approaching it, that you're going to have to deal with that. And Sprague able to see Prod's feet just at the bottom of the smoke to take that AK away. Might give them the opening that they need to at least get a bomb plant here now, because they are going to be looking for every dollar they possibly can to make sure that their round 5 is as strong as possible.
Ooh, a little bit of damage on the Penguin with the nade, but the flash will cause them to back off.
Ah, man,
Good
that was a missed opportunity.
Migs was looking for some more damage to do there, but the majority of Marist, actually all Marist, has backed off. Finally, we do have some more influence from Rarigini, throwing him for a loop. Not sure if there's a commitment yet or a full rotation, but we do have 2 players who made that commitment back over to B. Taking it slow and quietly. And we have Migs finally deciding it's time to make a move, but watch out, it's going to be Remy right around the corner. Are they ready for it? Oh, he finds one. Remy finds a second, but JM finally puts that one to rest. They're not done yet. 38 seconds. They got to make a move. They're backing off. They have to get this bomb planted.
Oh no. The Miss Molly is going to create some difficulties for them as they try to execute on it, and that honestly might be enough for them to say, let's save these weapons and back off for this round, because again, they're coming into this, but maybe it won't matter. Mig's able to take the first one. We might see 2 more. Oh no. All right, JM bring it back, making it a 1v2, but with Mandalore already there, that's going to be a quick end to that round that took a lot longer, and I think a few more turns than we expected, being able to pick off some of those rifles. I definitely would have liked to have seen, especially looking at the cash on the side of the terrorists, that we had a little bit more forethought into saving the rifles that they picked up. Those were by no means small victories. So they're going to come back into this with a 4 rounds, but Marquette continuing to be pretty aggressive is going to meet the players on the A ramp. Mig's able to get that first blood, and the round just continues to go on that, with Remy picking up the M249 and just shutting down that mid position.
No attempt to make their way up the A ramp has been successful. They may have gotten a frag, an easy pick last round, getting that damage done. I mean, Migs also taking a hit. This is just another one of those times Marist stopped short. We saw it last round, but they didn't make that full commitment toward mid. Now they're stopping short again on the A ramp. Some players on scaffolding might be able to convert that into aggressive positioning there for Lucky or Penguin. Question is, though, what's their next move going to be? Because it almost seems that they don't even know what the next play is.
I think if they're going to commit towards this A site, like, that's just the commitment that they're going to have to make, because at least there's a 2v2 fight here to be had, maybe a 1v1 depending on how things are going. But unfortunately, needing to clear out that sandbag area is going to give them a sense, or give the Marquette team a sense, that there's going to be some players over there, although it doesn't seem like Prod was really aware of that just yet. But now they know, obviously, the Marist is making their way up. And that was amazing spray transfer from Mandalore. 2 heads gone, and another round on the board for Marquette.
What a spray there from Mandalore. Oh, just exactly what you need to see from a player who's basically holding that angle by themselves. They did have some support from the back, I believe, from Prod, but a bit of flashes pushed them back away from the action. Mandalore with a great swing and spray cleans it up themselves. Rarigini almost going down, taking a ton of damage from that LMG, but they will get that opening pick here. Nothing gained, though, from that incursion.
Just a little bit of map control seeded from the side of Marquette in terms of the information that they're able to glean. But Lucky, as you can notice, able to take down Migs, who is incredibly aggressive on that A site. But Just Rich, with that op replacing the scout that he had before, is ready to shut down that B site. So as you said, with the pick onto Remy in the mid, taking that M249 out of play, great to have a player off of the board, but they're not really gaining much ground as we come into just a minute left in the round.
It's going to be all about what happens. Prod sees Rarigini, that swing, have the crosshair ready, but they're going to push up, and they do get it anyway. Nades out. They might not be able to live with that one. Prod actually does get a posthumous little martyrdom kill for it. They will fall, though. Mandalore back in position, back ready to try and defend the point. They don't get it done. JM with the op, and they have an op battle where at the moment Lucky, in an unorthodox planning position, might be able to win this one out. As Just Rich goes for the reposition. Looks again finds Lucky. And it's a 1v1. They gotta get aggressive. They gotta push the angle that's being held. Just Rich, all alone. But it doesn't seem hopeless. Not yet. JM has to have that new angle out by scaffolding. They might get it. They missed the shot. Both of them do. And the
Oh,
bomb
the
is still
problem-
ticking.
Oh no! And this is a spot that JM can't see from that angle. So unless, oh man, that is heartbreaking timing. That should have been the first round for Marist, but unfortunately, and Just Rich, oh, getting the no scope on a JM just to take away that off in the last second. That was a nightmare for Marist. I don't think they could have had that go any worse.
No. It started out so much better than it ended, Viking. The plant, unfortunately, while it was good to evade Just Rich's shot at the beginning, with that repositioning from both Just Rich and from Lucky, it just wasn't what needed to be done. It was the worst angle, the perfect storm for Marquette. As they had that block off along with the smoke, there was nothing they could do to try and win that one out, especially with the timing put onto Marist.
Yeah, I think that the like you said, we understand the thought process behind that, but I think because before they had ran for that plant, they knew the position that he was playing from. They knew basically what they should have expected in terms of his later movement and positioning on it. That it would have been better to just go back to the default space, give an opportunity for that refrag. But even after making that decision, the biggest mistake that they made was peeking Lee off very early around the corner, where it's you got to know that he's going to be playing one of those angles, and you just want to get to a spot where you're minimizing the exposure that you have to those places, and just playing down the bond timer as much as you can. And ultimately, as we saw, JM just didn't have a line of sight on the bomb through those default boxes, and as a result of that, like we've been saying a lot there, it just went the direction of Marquette in a space where it really shouldn't have, and that's one of those mistakes that is going to come back and haunt them, because we are now going into round 7 and Marist on their own map pick still does not have a round on the board.
It's definitely not an enviable position here for Marist. But, I mean, there are some rifles on the board. I don't know if they're going to have one out there for Reed as well. Or I'm just realizing Reed isn't a player. That was actually a temporary tech pause we just had as we were waiting there for Lucky to get back into the server. I was wondering, oh wow, quick in-game substitution. Didn't know that was possible.
Very much so. I think it's also worth noting here again, we see Mandalore on the CT side, just head and shoulders above everybody else playing right now. With some of the Marist College teams yet to get back to even now with Penguin in that disconnect. So not a great statistical position being in, especially even considering that we're at round 7. But Marist has really got to take a moment to take control here, because if they don't get at least, I would say, 5 rounds on this, even with this being kind of a little bit easier in some ways, I guess, for the CT side, it's just such an insurmountable challenge. And then you start to have some of that PTSD from Nuke start to creep in to continue to make it very difficult for them to win in their own minds.
So many players ready here at ramp, waiting for someone to make their push. Do have one. Oh, a little tap out from Remy. Does signal they know exactly where they are. Spraying with the first one to open it up. Mandalore swinging, gets the trade, and Migs from the scaffolding holding strong as well. This no longer will be that 8 push they were hoping for. Maybe Rarigini can establish some sort of control here on mid, but they will have a few players to deal with on this one. Remy with the first flash and a swing. It's good. Wait a minute. It's not good. Rarigini won it out, but Mandalore there for the trade. JM also creating some space for themselves here on B. I mean, it's winnable. It's doable, Viking, but it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, that pick on to Just Rich was critical, first of all, and they've taken Mandalore off the board, but I don't know if JM is aware of where Migs is coming from. Oh, great opportunity, great strategy there, jumping up on the boxes, taking Migs by surprise, and getting Marist their first round in 7.
What a way for them to win it out. You would expect the peak, but not like this. You'd think normally 2 options, left or right, but this time, you know what? We're going up, and they upped their score by 1, which isn't a great margin, but, you know, it's better than 0.
It is. I mean, that's 100% improvement, right? So you take those stats when you can get them. But now they have to follow that up, and the positive that positive thing that they've got going for them is now Marquette has slightly less hardware than they have, but it does not matter because, of course, the first players that Marist run into are Just Rich and Bremy, and so they are already down 3 players less than 30 seconds into the round. And despite the fact that there's still just MP9s on some of the players on the Marquette side, it may not matter, especially because there's 0 map control from Marist and still 5 players hunting on Marquette.
Migs recovering into AK. It'll definitely be an advantage for them. MP9's no longer, as we do have the last players making their way up toward mid. Unless they decide to back off, check the ladder room. Going to be necessary because we know how much these players have been sneaking around, specifically Mandalore, especially around that ladder section. A lot of players looking down toward the B stairs. No one's going to be there though. It's quite silent. Yeah, you like that? I was pretty
I
happy on
do.
that one.
I do. Did you just come up with that yourself?
That is what happened, but you know what? Oh, Migs almost came up with 2 by themselves. Lucky there for the trade, though. Still a 1v4, and now it's CT's flooding out to mid-prod. There for the pickup. We also had another one on drop. It was going to be a very difficult play if anyone wanted to make that one successful there for Marist. 7-1 right now, Viking, and the money is in the gutter.
Very much so. And I want to see more from Marist towards that B site, because I don't know if they've quite gathered what's going on yet, but it's largely just been Just Rich holding this either with the scout, the op, or now with the M4. So there's a lot of opportunity for them to overwhelm the bomb site and at least get a plant down. But the fact that they didn't have any counter utility and not really much of a buy in any sense at all, obviously is going to shut that down, because you can't necessarily just run through the molly unless you're crazy, as some people are. Could have been a good opportunity, but now they're going to continue going back to what has been their comfort tendency, which is that A site. And, you know, either just by losing one-on-ones or some other virtue of challenge, while it was their first bomb plan, it has not worked out for them in basically any scenario.
Got one player. It's Migs. You know how well they've held it over on the ramp. Picking up 3. Oh! I mean, it's not over just yet, because Just Rich also has the pressure there from mid. And at this point, it's exactly what we would have expected on an eco round. But you'd hope that someone would be there for the trade. Regardless, great spray control out there from Migs. They have not allowed anyone to advance up the ramp. It's just an unattainable goal to get into that site.
It is. I mean, we've seen Marist kind of poking and prodding, looking for some kind of weakness, and they just have come up empty each time, because they're running into these players that are feeling really good about their positions. And whether it's Mandalore or it's Migs or it's Remy in that mid position, they're continuously just, you know, holding quality angles and winning those one-on-ones that are kind of taking the wind out of the sails of any attack that they might have. And then when they slow it down, they're losing those one-on-ones, which is, or if they're winning the one-on-ones, even as we've talked about in previous rounds, they're not making enough progress in their map control to position to execute, and that is ultimately translating to the fact that they haven't put many rounds on the board. But Rarigini opening up against Remy, you see them moving a little bit more aggressively into that mid position. Sprague able to take out Prod, that's going to give them the man position, but they still are not necessarily in an execution position, and they still have 3 players down, including their top fragger Mandalore, who is not ready to give up and starting that flank already.
Oh, Rarigini continues that onslaught, and they do have a chance here to make their way to A, but they won't be expecting Mandalore. However, the flank, it doesn't find any immediate success, and they will take that position onto A and get that bomb down successfully. This is going to take a Herculean effort for Mandalore to pull this victory from their clutches, but it's going to be a non-commit here. Save the AK. You got plenty of rounds to work with at this point. What's another loss?
The funny thing about that is, if we hadn't seen those first 2 attempts and shots from Mandalore, which were kind of uncharacteristic misses from him, we probably would be saying the opposite. You know, we've seen Remy in the last map win that 3v1 that looked like a sure thing for Marist. And there's no reason that Mandalore wouldn't be able to pull that off with a slightly better opening. But for now, Marist gets away with another round, a tiny bit more room to breathe. And now they've really got to try to chip away at that economy and try to force Marquette onto Eco to boost their score line as much as possible before they get into the CT side themselves.
It's JM here that I'm interested in seeing perform. They
Mm.
have that op in hand. What are they going to be able to do with it? Just Rich. Going for a bit of a glass cannon vibe. They don't have the helmet along with that op. And Rari Gini looking to take control of mid as they have found success these last couple of rounds. I'm going to press it. They do have some backup there. Also, Penguin, give them some help. JM, the op, over by, actually, by bottom B stairs, waiting for anyone to be aggressive. It's just Rich over on B. They might be able to make a move. It's Mandalore, though. The main attack or aggressor, the main threat, will be challenging them on mid. It's here for Rarigini with the potential swing, but he backs up.
This is exactly what we're talking about in terms of there not really being a lot of follow-up map control, which has become a really big issue for Marist as they get into these later parts of the round. They're still at the bottom of ramp. They still have not fully pushed out into mid, and so while they have got a man advantage, they haven't really gained much from it. We're continuing to have this conversation round after round, and that is a significant problem if Marist wants to get to 5 or 6 or 7 rounds. Mandalore taking out Rarigini, eliminating that one manage they have, and now Sprague starting to move up that A ramp is going to run into the players on that site, and then it'll just come down to those same 1v1s that we've been talking about that Marquette has so far come out on top of, except for Lucky takes out Prod, who is already a little bit softened up by Sprague, and now this executes coming out onto the A site.
When it's working out well, Penguin finds one. Mandalore there for the trade as they have been creeping around back mid. And the rotation is coming through. They got to defend A. It's a 1v3. We've seen this before. Mandalore didn't decide to commit last time around. And it gave Marist their second W here in Vertigo, but there won't even be a chance for a save. JM with a huge up headshot wall bang over onto Mandalore. And that's the player I was looking for. Play out with that up. It is the only one that came through that round, but it was enough to get a win.
Critically also in that round, well, it was the first time that we saw the op kill. It was also Penguin's first kill of the round, which, you know, we've talked about how, you know, people just, you know, end up in different situations. The kill count's not necessarily reflective of their impact. It is really important when you don't have any kills that you're getting your first, because that ultimately opens up that door for a better mental morale / state. But here we find the same thing happening. They took out Remy in mid. They haven't even moved around elbow in mid yet. So, you know, I think they have a sense that they're on a save, which is great. But ultimately, those deagles on the side of Marquette can be particularly dangerous. Sprague able to force out Prod, take out the first player on A, but they're still playing so cautiously, just so respectful of how well Marquette has done in previous rounds.
It's a definite good change here for Marist, taking their time and not losing any weapons. It might be a flawless round for them, and it will be. So they can't afford to lose weapons. They can't afford to hand them back over to Marquette, because we know how deadly they can be once they get that fire burning in their side. So Marquette finally has the buys back. But it will be Marist College 2 in a row.
3 now, I think. No, 2 in a row. You're right. Can't do math. But critically here, if they can continue that momentum and take another round out of Marquette's bank has been completely depleted, while Marist is in a great position to basically finish out this half with a reasonable buy almost every round. So they're really, really critically got to make sure that they're playing smart, that they're getting a little bit more out of each frag that they're ultimately able to put down as those opportunities become available. And while I made the point earlier that they weren't having a lot of success on A, that has been a little less true as long as they're able to push through mid and get something more out of it. But with Mandalore on that A site, you know, anything is possible for how quickly the momentum can shift.
Ooh, nice nade onto Remy. Maybe a second one. No, it's just a molly to keep him back up. Mandalore there with the swing. They're not expecting it, picking up 2. And it will be the assist of Lucky's own flashbang there Team Flash, a little bit of unfortunate play. It's not over just yet. Prod here might get a sneaky bit of business. Nothing quite, oh, nothing crazy until now. Penguin there does swing in response. Now it's a 2v3.
This is where Penguins really got to step up and make that gap up in the frags compared to his teammates and really show what his potential is. Rarigini, full on full health, gets prod. That's going to even up the body count for both sides. And it looks like they're favoring that push towards the B site, which means they're going to run into one player, it looks like, but they're not going to have to deal with it yet. But the way that both Mandalore and Just Rich have been playing in the past, it makes this a very tenuous end of the round, even at an even score with the bomb down on the side of Marist.
A slow rotation out from Mandalore as they do get to mid. And finding the way in CT would be an interesting retake. They do have both angles. Will be covered. The flash out from Just Rich, sending out some blind shots, hoping to get a easy pick. Nothing yet. Mandalore, he does get the sneak in. They're not looking away, and Just Rich wins their gunfight as well. Marquette takes another one back.
I expected a little bit better positioning in the post plant from Marist on their own map pick, just because I think that they were aware of obviously Just Rich on the stairs there. And I think it's always a safe assumption that you're going to see someone coming from that CT side. But as you saw, Penguin just, trying to hug that pillar as best they could, completely exposed to that with no real alternative. And then obviously, the fact that Just Rich was continuously threatening there just made that such a death pincer. Jam able to get a little bit of damage onto Just Rich, but unfortunately not the full frag is going to be a missed opportunity. But at least it's something. But with 2 rounds left, Marist has really, really got to put something on the board here so they have just a little bit more space and time going into the CT side.
Lucky there, finding one through the smoke. Things have been slowed down to a halt. Maybe a little bit of a jump boost here. I think that's exactly what we're going to get. That's not an angle they're going to be expecting. Penguins starting it off with a flash and now a swing. No one's here just yet, but there is one player, I believe Remy, waiting, lying in wait. Around the corner, if they decide to make the commitment around the boxes, they will have to face off against him first. You can see it right behind the pallets, and they know it too. They see the body through the slit, and Rarigini fills that slot with lead.
Is that going to be enough to pull back their players from the A site to think about a B and then avoid that jump boost that you talked about before? But it doesn't look so. It still seems like they're excited about that A site, although it's hard to tell what their thinking is at this point because they keep...
Oh!
All right, then. That's a great answer to a jump peak. Sacrifice 1, but as long as you get that immediate refrag, you still have that 3-2. That's going to be their signal to go over to the B site because they now know that they have at best a 1v1, a 1-1 split. But Just Rich not giving up his site without a fight, going there, taking out Rarigini, and now there's another 1v1 happening on that site as Penguin tries to find his way to support his teammate.
Yeah, Penguin and Mandalore just narrowly avoiding each other. If you've been looking at the minimap, they've been so close to each other, but never actually engaged. And now it is all up to Mandalore, waiting back on mid. I'm not sure what the plan, or... Wait, what? They ran out of time?
Wow, Just Rich doing such a great job there to just burn off all of the time on the clock and just be dangerous enough to make sure that they had to respect his presence. And unfortunately, they knew that he was in that smoke, but just weren't able to get there. Penguin had great timing to avoid the frag, but ultimately, at the end of the day, that clock is something that everyone has to answer to.
What an unfortunate way to lose out that round. I mean, that's the issue that comes out with playing it slow. They have been playing it slow, but you can't play too slow. It was, what a way to lose that one. Prod holding it down on ramp as they look to make their way, but it is now going to be an open site on B. It has to be a fast rotation if they want to take advantage of that opening pick on the site. But you gotta be careful here, because Lucky or Rarigini might show us back over to Remy. But Remy will play it safe for now until that peak goes sour. The bomb will be planted.
That's exactly what I was kind of hoping to see from them earlier in the half, because they really just didn't attack that B site hardly at all, either because, they were taking just enough damage from Just Rich in that aggressive position to kind of dissuade them from that decision. But here, we've seen them twice now having success getting onto the site. Not always, obviously, success coming out of that. But here it looks like they're in his best position to come in as possible, except for Migs
Oh!
getting the collateral answered by Rarigini, but not before two of his teammates are lost.
Well, a nice flick around for Penguin to continue to build up some frags on their scoreline. Still not the offensive half that Marist College was looking for, especially considering this is their map pick. The question is, can they really pick things up now on the CT side? For their sake, I'm hoping so, because this has been a match with great moments out of Marist, but Marquette is such a skilled squad that it's going to take a much stronger, more coordinated defense for them to come out on top, or at least contend.
It's just that those moments, no matter how great they are not enough on their own. Although the performance from JM, who's been so impactful over the previous ones, certainly making a statement in the opening here, but going down to Mandalore, the opposite team's JM, just taking out two, both in JM and in Sprague. They're going to open up that A site. We're going to see the terrorists with Remy flanking, not being expected. Misses the first couple of shots, but it doesn't matter. He takes out Lucky, and now it's just Rarigini between those and between Marquette and Victory.
Is that going to be a double back? Or is it a fake out? I can't fully tell, Viking. And actually, it is. It's going to be a commitment back to A, while we already have Rarigini sprinting their way to B. However, after some time, wouldn't be surprised if they decide to double back, make their way. Well, at this point, it's going to be a retake.
And with it being Mandalore and Migs against Rarigini, who has been nothing but solid, in the moments that he's had the opportunity to do so, this is a huge order for one person to deal with these just hot hands. All these walking right onto site. He able to get Migs, but Mandalore immediately there to get the refrag is going to put that first round in favor of Marquette. So this is not the start that they wanted to this, although it was obviously significantly closer than we've seen in previous rounds. So it at least gives them just like a little bit of glimmer of hope. And while, they're going to be on a full save here just to get back into the game as quickly as possible, they're starting to think long term, because there's only 4 or 5 rounds left for Marquette before they declare victory.
Well, this is a full stack here from Marist. They're making their commitment over to A. Well, we do have a similar peak toward the ramp, but not a full. They actually have left the bomb way in tunnels, so they have the option. They're keeping it open, and once they realize that B has been left completely clear, it's going to be a full-on rotation. So we can see the players on ramp doubling back to secure that bomb, but Rarigini gets the jump on Remy. This might make this attack not as strong as they were looking for. Bomb does make its way up the stairs, so plant should commence in just a few moments.
Yeah, the fact that they left the bomb behind definitely gives them more time, but it doesn't matter as the two sides have found their marks. Lucky able to take out another one, Sprague there still, but they're dealing with an AK and a defender still, and that is not an easy thing to overcome. Just Risk cleans it up with the 2 Galil kills, and that is going to be the end of the second round of the half. So now it's up to the Marist side to decide whether they're going to go with their buys. It looks like they is. And this is really the gamble for everything. If they mess up here because of how far they've had to buy down and the lack of money in the bank just because of how early it is, that's really the end of the game from them unless they're able to pull off something miraculously. So a lot of pressure on this round.
Initially with Rarigini getting the shot in. Rarigini out there with the trade, and so many mollies and smokes. The utility fest over on A or B is astounding. A nice shot out from such a long sight line. JM might get another one, and they do, whittling the numbers of Marquette down to 2 and make that 1, as Migs is the last man standing there to defend the site. Should be an easy collapse here for Marist, but knowing Migs, they're going to make him bleed before they can get it done.
Being 1v1 is exactly how you set yourself up for a loss here, but Migs not feeling the flank from Penguin means that Marist is going to walk away with this round. Great response, excellent individual effort from JM there to make sure that that bomb site was not a safe place to set up. and ultimately starting to narrow the gap between Marist and Marquette. However, we've seen Marquette come back from those types of rounds with a fury and no lack of decisiveness. So really, it's now up to them to decide how they're going to answer. And so far, it looks like they're just going to opt for the upgraded pistols and some light armor purchases just to see what they can do. But man, those deagles have created so much damage on these servers before that it wouldn't surprise me if this ends up being a close round or even a Marquette victory.
Well, here it comes, running up the ramp. They're not even prepared for it. Penguin does get a few shots onto Migs. They have to back off, swapping it out, realizing Mandalore might be the only hope. They give him the deagle, and what can they do? There's one player moving up scaffolding. They can't get caught out with utility. They cannot lose out the first frag like this. Just Rich creeped all the way up into scaffolding. I don't think they realize who's there, and Penguin's attention is divided, but no, they're good. Sprig is there for the cover, and they have held on to their control of this site for now. Remy, though, playing it cheeky with that Zeus. Uh-oh.
That could have been very dangerous, but they are able to get that immediate response. Spray able to take out Remy, and now we just have Mandalore with armor and a deagle, but no health left. So that is an excellent way for Marist to continue building a little bit momentum. 5 rounds now separate them from Marquette. Marquette being able to get into their full preferred purchases now are going to start to be, I assume, their classic aggressive and assertive selves, seeming to favor that A site a little bit more. And now it's going to be up to Marist as to whether they contend with now a fully loaded Marquette offense. It does make me a little nervous how aggressive they are up to that A ramp, not seeming to match up the timing for Marquette. That's kind of making those very aggressive early pushes towards the bottom of the ramp. We saw that on the pistol round that, you almost got caught out by the Tech 9 there, able to just get away from that because of the difference in equipment. But that is a dangerous point of potential weakness as we get into later rounds.
Yeah, playing it quite slow here. Marquette will send more utility toward B. No strong commitments, though. We do have Prod. Be the first one to start to suss out some information, or at least think about it, or to B. But Sprig here, which one on A? We'll find. It's going to be Mandalore. First engagement. If they can win it out with the one tap, nice little burst to the brain, and they get it. JM, equally deadly. We're finding them with the up, and they get the shot right as the smoke starts. A perfect getaway, and they're winning this quite cleanly so far. 2 players down here for Marquette. Make that 3. Might even be 4 as Rarigini peeks around the corner to find the stairs are being assaulted. They're holding it down behind the orange boxes. And JM from the back line gets a blind flash banged wall bang. Look at that kill feed right there.
That is an entirely different execution from Marist than I think we've seen in others. A little scary from Just Rich there in terms of the damage that he was causing to the Marist squad, but Penguin able to clean that up and really turn around his performance from that first half. Now catching up to some of his teammates and equalizing ultimately the numerical impact that he has had. But Marist starting to seemingly get their feet underneath them has answered really well. We've seen JM in multiple rounds just being such a huge presence with that op and not letting Marquette dictate ultimately how these are going. So we see Marquette back on the save with slightly upgraded pistols, but no armor this time, opting to keep everybody above that 2K limit so they can ultimately buy back in. Doing a little bit of damage to JM there, but not quite enough. And now JM takes off Just Rich's head, but Marquette still has a presence over to that A ramp.
JM truly taking it to Marquette with that op. Definitely, like I said, I was invested in this player and their capabilities with that weapon early on, and I'm seeing that it's paying off at least here for Marist, as another one falls at the hands of the deadly sniper here from Marist.
Jam is making an easy case for MVP on the Marist side with every round that they have put into a decisive victory seeming to come at his hands. But Rarigini and Lucky ultimately trying to defend that off. Lucky able to play great decoy as Rarigini is able to clean up those last 3 players. And now we're back into the position of Marquette purchasing their full rifle buy, but still being a little bit lighter on the long-term economy than I'm sure that they would like to. And Same is pretty much true for Marist. We look at Lucky, who is bought down pretty lightly with a little bit of goodwill built up in the bank for both these teams. But I think their jam with that early
JM!
peak,
JM
that's a
does
good
it
sign.
again. Oh, Penguin almost converting that into 2 frags, but it will be traded out by Migs. They're holding it steady here on the A, but Just Rich, right under their noses, is planting the bomb. Oh, JM almost goes down, but spraying through the smoke, gets it done. They will get the bomb into play. However, it's going to be much easier in the retake in a 4v2 once they take control of scaffolding, once they keep it away from Remy, who's waiting for that peak. The molly doesn't go far enough to keep him out, and Rarigini is pushing the offensive, and there it is. There it is, the successful retake, and Marquette is losing their grip on this map. Marist now putting their economy, again, in solid position.
Yeah, they're building up some great momentum there, and I think the key is just seeing how they're getting that collapse together. What we were seeing in earlier rounds when they had similar situations is they were getting into those 1v1 peaks, giving a lot of opportunities to Marquette to just pick people off in those one-on-ones that they've been so good at. But this time, Marist able to fire on all cylinders, great communications, making sure that they're using those numbers advantages to close out the rounds convincingly. And that's given them, now almost 5 rounds in a row. And Marquette, with only a 2-round advantage now, really has to be careful about how this is going to play out. Because as we were talking about with Marist running out of rounds, that is now potentially true for Marquette, depending on how Marist is able to take away or not this round.
Oh, the running and gunning out from Remy takes control of drop, but JM with the flick no scope headshot is gonna keep them alive. Oh my god, that was insane, but that insanity will not continue as Migs waiting by the sandbags or by drop does take him down. However, the bomb has been planted and the retake has to commence here, starting off with a little bit of nade. Doesn't quite get the damage they were looking for. Prod takes a small hit on the legs, but now it really is up to Penguin. Sprague, clean this one up. Prod gets one. Sprague there to trade it out, but he runs out of ammo. Unfortunately, can't get this one done. Mandalore coming back as the one player we know to really put the team on their back to come through in those tense moments. Does win it out and clutches with a trade. A close and very strong effort there by Marist, but this might be the end of their reign, of their momentum, of their push to try and get the edge over Marquette. And now they want to press the advantage with potentially a rush up A ramp.
Exactly, and those close rounds are so devastating as you think about, there's only really 3 rounds left for Marquette to take before they can claim victory, and Marist just clinging on to the economy that they've got left. This is really their last chance to make sure that they stand this up, and they need to do it without losing too many rifles. Otherwise, they're going to be in the position that Marquette is in right now, where they have 2 Galils and 3 AKs, which not a bad thing by any means. Oh, Penguin must have seen it. Come on, buddy. There you go. Like, you can do it. You can see that pixel on the screen. So that is exactly the position they want to be. They want to open up strong. They want to get that first man advantage. But ultimately, with Mandalore, Remy, Prod, Just Rich still alive and well, there is no shortage of danger still on this map.
Holding fast, Rarigini sends out the molly, but they aren't convinced. No one is up just yet. A few shots through the plasterboard, doesn't find anything, but they are certain someone had to push up, but they miss it right at the last moment. Rod does get away, jumping for their life to get back to B stairs, and they do take a little bit of damage, but broken legs are better than a loss of life. However, there it is. Rarigini does find one. However, Remy pushing through mid won't be able to get into another fight, another engagement there. They don't have control of the site just yet. Prod in the back line almost gets taken out with the op. And they have to push it. They have to try and get control back. Mandalore, first one to fall. It's a 2v3, and the swing is good from Penguin, and that is going to spell the end of this round. Stealing back the momentum. They aren't going to lose their grip on this map just yet, Viking.
Another huge impact play from JM there to take out Mandalore, who not only is their top fragger, but also the only player left that had full health. and able to just really collapse on and remove the fact that there were 3 players, all obviously all capable of making some insane plays as we've already seen, and able to do exactly what they need to do at the exact right time. They came out of that. They were able to hang on to most of the weaponry that they started that round with. And now we're still back to a 2-round disadvantage, or sorry, 2-round gap or disadvantage to Marist. But now they've got all the momentum, and the Marquette team is now got to decide, do we go for this right now, gamble it all, and assume that we're going to come out of this and get our 14th round? Or if they do so and they lose, then that's basically game for Marist.
Yeah, that is a massive gamble. Because if they lose out on this force and are put into a pistol scenario or a SMG scenario for the next 2 rounds, Marist is going to take the lead. Marist is going to take the lead, and they still have such oppressive firepower. JM is not losing grip from that up. They're going to have to rip it from his cold, dead hands. And the only way they're going to have that opportunity is if they force up right here, right now. A bit of a soft commitment in terms of buying 1 AK, 1 scout, a few deagles on the board. Is this going to be enough for them to win it?
I guess we'll see in the next minute, but it's
Hey.
what we've seen with the with Mandalore, especially on that Deagle and other contacts, although he's been pretty quiet so far this game, is those 1Ds are just absolutely devastating. And Marist playing a little bit more aggressively on the A ramp, but not ultimately finding some of the success that they have in previous, is gonna maybe give them a false sense of security as to what might be waiting for them here. But the rest of the Marquette team is sort of spread out with their firepower distributed across the map, meaning that even if they find a kill or two, there's still an opportunity to pass weapons, and there's still a lot of chances for somebody from the Marist side to be caught out and lose one of those 1v1s, creating that opening and ultimately opening the door for Marquette in victory.
Either player there, Rory Gini and Prod, sending some shots at each other. No one finding success until now. Marigini lessens the chance of Marquette coming out on top with this one, especially taking out their longest range capability to scout. However, that was just a bit of a prod into B site, as the real commitment here is to A. Just Rich gets the first headshots. Now they have a rifle in hand. Things have started to turn around as the plant is secured, and it's an even fight in terms of man advantage.
With that many smokes in play, it's going to obviously delay the attempt at the retake. And without much, Remy with the only AK and the flank, able to take out Sprague and potentially another there. But now, no matter what, they have to contend with this threat. And Lucky not able to take that out, and Marquette able to take such a varied buy with just pistols and absolutely destroy the Marist defense and the dreams that they have at closing this out decisively. Marist forced to take the time out and consider how are they going to keep Marquette from ultimately tying and then potentially taking map point.
What a devastating loss there. It started out quite nicely with the initial frag by B Stairs, and they somehow lost their ability. They lost the sight lines. It really fell apart after Penguin was shot over by scaffolding. Not having that angle covered, specifically with all the smokes in play, really put them at a major disadvantage. And that gamble paid off for Marquette. They committed most of their money. They committed into rifles, deagles. It's what they needed to do, and they're finding success with it. And now Migs even has an op to work with.
This is not an easy thing to contend with. There's not a lot of cash on the side of Marist, but they don't really have a choice but to put whatever they can together really here to they can force it to overtime, but that's still 4 rounds that they'd have to win after this, with no margin for error, no mistakes allowed whatsoever. And Marquette, now having built up a little bit more of a bank with the gamble that they took in that last round, is going to be such a formidable opponent, no matter what the situation is. So this looks pretty dire for Marist.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, they have no real money. It's just JM. JM is the only commitment of the dough here for Marist. Prod waiting for it. They don't even know where they're going to be. An unfortunate play. JM, though, nice little response with the op. They're going to have to back off. Don't want to have it too strong of a commitment and lose that piece of firepower. Ugh. Not looking too good here. As Penguin gunned down as well. It's just up to JM to try and hide, but there is no place you can hide that Marquette won't find you, and it's match point.
It's a very, very dark place for Marist to be right now. They are able to get those M4s, but ultimately, basically no utility available to them except for a few smokes and flashes. And as a result of that, they're going to have a very difficult time, especially if Marquette chooses to be particularly aggressive here, which of course they're known to do. And already you see them pushing up towards mid, but not checking his corner. JM able to take out Remy, and Ray Regating saying we're not ready to take the L and going for that second one, but falling to the nade with one more on site. It's really up to them to hold on to the B site and try to wait for reinforcements. But Marquette slowing down a little bit more with 2 still towards the A site, including the bomb, means that Marist has really no idea where to expect the attack from.
A lot slower here. Prod back again by the B stairs, and they don't want to lose that one like they did in the previous round. They're actually using a time to their advantage. They want to do the same thing that Marist tried, sweating him out, making him second guess what the play is going to be. But with players so spread out at this point, I mean, Just Rich has already made his way up this site and might get the first shot onto Penguin, and they do. There's some more players here, but the smoke is going to make sure no one can double back, try and get too aggressive. They will hold on to this angle. As Biggs gets the bomb down. With this, the pressure's on here for Marist. No one's coming on the flank, but we do have another player. Prod all the way in the back line. He's running through CT. That's the flanker they got to watch out for, but Miggs is already putting some havoc here, making it a 3v2, make it a 3v1. It's just up to Lucky to try and clutch it out. But Lucky finds one. Will they get a second one? They do. It's a 1v1. This is so doable. But they just have to find Just Rich. I don't know. I don't know if he has time. He's not going to go for the swing. Not enough. He will go for the defusal. The swing is good.
Oh, no.
And
that's
Marquette,
exactly...
Marquette University win it out. 16-11. So close.
It was an excellent effort by Marist there to really bring it back together. And honestly, that last round was so close. It was one of those things where just a single smoke could have been the difference between, a successful defuse and not. Overall, it was a huge, huge, huge effort by Marist to come back from such a significant beating on Nuke and really try to put their best foot forward on Vertigo, their map choice. They made it very close. They overcame a significant deficit to make it a very respectable match. They did a lot of really great moments. JM, notably, especially on that op, able to do so many great things, but Marquette just continuing to show that the wall that they put up is one that's incredibly difficult to break.
Yeah, Marquette holding strong, winning 2-0 here in the first series of the night. Great job by them, but also kudos, of course, to Marist College for putting up a good effort as well. But we'll actually be able to interview Miggs over from Marquette in just a few moments, so don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back. Welcome back to EGFC CSGO. We just wrapped up the first series here with Marquette University taking the dub 2-0. I'm Los, below me is Tyler, and joining us for an interview is Marquette's very own Migs. Migs, how you feeling after that dub?
I'm feeling pretty good. It was kind of like a must-win game. Definitely a game where we kind of had a strategy going into it. Just because we know how good Marist is on Inferno, we just did not want to play them on it. Most notably JM on the op. We know he's an op crutch. We try to put our game plan around him, or just trying to shut him down. And as you saw in Vertigo, he kind of got the best of us for a little bit. But yeah, we won at the end of the day. We're happy with the win. So yeah.
My question for you is, what did Mandalore have for breakfast this morning? Because
Um,
good gracious, that kid is doing insane work on both maps without what seemed like any effort.
yeah. So I mentioned last week that that Mandalore had picked up the IGL role on Vertigo, and he's been doing really well at just figuring out setups for us, getting things that are going to work, and putting himself in spots that he's going to be able to get info. And so, notoriously, Mandalore is known for just being in the middle of the pack. He'll get an entry kill and likely die, but he gets the info on what they're doing. But today, dude, he had his Wheaties because I've never seen him pop off that much on Nuke, much less Vertigo. And so, I mean, shout out to him because he really carried us through at the end there because he took a deep we took that time out, we took a deep breath. He's just like, all right, you guys got any ideas? Can we exploit something? And we got it done.
Absolutely. And with that in mind, as you were talking about the strategy, one another question that I had sort of about the two maps, I think there is a pretty stark contrast in the approach that you brought to them. Nuke, we saw a lot of aggression both on the T and CT side,
Mhm.
not giving it any opportunity for Maris to breathe whatsoever. Vertigo, much more reserved overall, I think, and much more surgical, I guess you could say. You mentioned being aware, obviously, of JM and the damage that he can do with the op. We saw you favoring a lot the inside take on Nuke. Was that something that was conscious, and was that something that sort of decided how you were going to vary between the maps, or is that really just down to the overall strategy for both sides?
It's definitely just a pace change because Remy IGLs Nuke and Mandalore is now IGLing Vertigo. Remy is kind of just in your face, aggressive all the time, and it works for Nuke, and it's one of our better maps because of it. When we get into Vertigo, we just recently put Vertigo back into our map pool, and as we saw, it kind of bit us in the butt a little bit during that match. Where once we started taking aggression, we definitely lost some players, which caused some rotates, which put us out of position, and it cost us some rounds at the especially on T side. And so that pace change is more of just a change of IGLs. And we know that Vertigo used to be very puggy and it used to be very aggressive, but now it's there now that teams know how to play it. We can't do that because it is very just claustrophobic, especially in ramp. And you can't go up and just expect, oh, we're just going to W key like we normally do. We have to have some sort of strategy going into it. So
Makes perfect sense. Appreciate that.
Well, speaking of strategy, are you considering adding Vertigo to your map ban next time you come up against Marist, or are you holding firm on Inferno as the map to avoid?
you want to run it back on Inferno, Sprog, JM? We're going back to Inferno 2 weeks from now. We'll see. We'll see. We'll just have to see. We play in two other leagues. We have a lot of practice on our maps. We go with what we're comfortable with at the time. And Inferno has been kind of down in an up and down as of late. It's 3 of our 4 losses in EGF. So definitely, we'll have to stay tuned because we'll have to see what we do in 2 weeks.
That sounds good. Well, last thing we got to ask for you. Anyone you want to give a special shout out to after this big win?
Yeah, shout out to my teammates just for not tilting on vertigo there. Um,
I was
I mean,
wondering
I
about
should.
that.
I mean, we tilted a bit, but we finally got around on T side, and they definitely pulled through. Lifted up some spirits. Few jokes thrown around, but yeah. Shout out to those guys. Shout out to the MU guys in chat. Even the Texas Tech guy that we played for ESCA on Wednesday was in the chat. So um, appreciate everybody coming out. Yeah, can't wait to play Iona next week.
Awesome. Sounds good. And shout out to you, Migs, for coming on to this interview. Congrats on your win, and good luck to you in the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All
And
right,
ladies and
folks.
gentlemen, go ahead, Los. Take it away.
Sorry about that, Viking. You know, I love to yell. All right, folks. That's going to do it for this series. We'll be right back after a quick break for the next match here between University of South Alabama and Siena College. Don't go anywhere. EGFC returns right after this quick break.